Today we're building the Cinder 2x72 from scratch. Links to everything will be in this post on my Facebook page and in the description. Also, you can pause here to capture the hardware and raw steel required for the build. I'll be including all the dimensions for anyone to pause on if they want to. So, with that all out of the way, let's dive into it, starting with column 1. First I scribe in my lines. Then I place my marks, and then drill the holes out to 16.5mm. It's as easy as that. Next we move on to the spacers. 2 have 10.5mm holes, and the other 5 have 16.5mm holes. I also make an extra M16.5mm spacer just in case. Carrying straight along, our tracking arm gets introduced here. Only pointer for this part is that the holes on the drawing that say 6.75mm will need to be tapped to M10. I just have them at 6.75 so that they're drilled smaller rather than larger when you're drilling. Also, go slow as you're measuring. Just go as slow as you can. There is no race apart from with yourself. And triple check all the dimensions before drilling. Also, if you want perfectly straight threaded holes, misuse your drill press like I do. So, with that out of the way, now we move on to part WR1. This needs 3 10.5mm holes and 1 M10 threaded hole. And that is R1. Then this is followed by our first piece of tube steel, the ever so important column 2. Column 2 is followed by column 3 with its 2 16.5mm holes. Then column 3 is followed by the motor mount 1 and 2. These are the holes you have to be the most specific on, so go slow like I mentioned before. These particular holes on screen now are tapped to M10. Just a reminder because they need the feet to be able to be screwed on. So now we're doing column 4 and we start with a good old fashioned center punch. I'm skipping a hell of a lot of steps in the hopes of keeping this video short, so let me know if you think I gloss over anything too quickly. For example, I'm not showing the clips I recorded measuring every hole out, because it turned the video into a 2-hour long behemoth, and I find myself ranting again. So, up next are the small but mighty feet. These could easily be made from the threaded rod, but the tube is cheaper, and I think it works pretty well. Jumping ahead, now we're looking at the work rest. And then the tracking mechanism parts. These all have M10 threaded holes on their ends, which is a little tricky to accomplish I guess, but they work great for what we need them for. This is the last part, so stick with me, the platen. The tricky bit here is cutting the slot out, but like I keep saying, just go slow and you'll be accurate. Then use whatever you have access to clean it up. After it's cleaned up, it's ready for marking and drilling. And that's all the parts made. Now I spend a good amount of time cleaning all of the oil and rust off of the steel before finally painting the parts. And with that done, we're up to assembly. Woo! Alright, grab your feet and insert your 15mm M10 Allen bolts, attaching the feet to the bottom of motor mount 1 and 2. Now add washers to the bottom of your motor and screw in your motor mount bolts. After that, slot both of the 177mm long M16 threaded rods through the front and back of motor mounts 1 and 2. 277mm long M16 threaded rod is inserted through the middle, making sure there is 6 M16 nuts in between the two motor mounts. Then the 177mm rods are secured by a further 4 M16 nuts on the outside. Now flip her over and throw 2 M16 spacers on the front of the longer rod, followed by column 1, secured at the front by an M16 nut. Now turn her around and place 3 16.5mm spacers over the remaining open threaded rod like so, followed by column 2 and finally a M16 nut to lock it all in place. Next, the 469mm threaded rod is inserted through the middle back hole of column 2, followed by 2 M16 nuts, then column 3. It's a little fiddly getting the last 4 nuts and the rod in place, but it shouldn't take you too long. Okay. The next step is to slot column 4 over the front of the 469mm threaded rod. with M16 nuts fastening it in place on either side. Now, make sure everything on this threaded rod is fastened tight. Next, the 139mm threaded rod is inserted through and secured to column 4, followed by another M16 spacer. Then the platen, making sure the platen is secured tightly in place with yet another M16 nut. By this stage, if you're assembling this yourself, it should look like this. Also at this stage, it's a good idea to make sure everything is square and tight and looking correct. Just double check it all for safety's sake. After that, place a M10 spacer over a tapped hole on column 4, and then screw on WR1 so it looks similar to this. Tap side away from the bolt at this stage. This is what that looks like. Now place the final 10.5mm spacer over the tapped hole, followed by the work rest, and then lock the work rest into place with your 30mm long countersunk M10 Allen head bolt. Now, let's head to the top of column 2, where a 50mm long M10 Allen head bolt is slotted through the tube steel and then through a clevis that has washers inserted snugly on either side of it. Up next, bolt the tracking arm to the clevis, then click the 71mm extension spring onto the back hole of the tracking arm. Now we need to attach the tracking mechanism parts. So secure the first 52mm long tracking mechanism, then thread through a 40mm Allen bolt, locked in place with the M10 nut. After that, slide a 20mm long M10 Allen bolt through the back of the tracking mechanism's M10 hole, making sure there are 2mm washers on the bottom and a lock washer sandwiched between 2 washers under the mechanism above that, if that makes sense. Now, the 55mm long mechanism is bolted to the 52mm mechanism with the threaded hole facing leftwards. This is where the tracking wheel will bolt onto. Also, make sure this part has washers sandwiched around another lock nut so that it can tilt but is still firm. Alright, close we are. Now we thread another 40mm long bolt through the left hand threaded hole so it pushes up against the tracking mechanism. And then thread into place the 100mm long bolt we're using as a handle, locking that into place as well with an M10 bolt. This is what the tracking mechanism should look like at this point. Here you can see me adjusting it so that everything's aligned nicely. Only thing left to do now is to add on your tracking wheel with 2mm spacers and an M10 nut between the wheel and the tracking mechanism. And voila! Now add on the belt and of course the drive wheel, which I'm just now realizing I didn't film, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I hope. So that's it, the grinder's built. Now to close this video out, here's a photo shoot and a couple choice clips showing off the grinder in action. Remember that the post on my Facebook page has all the information needed that's not contained here, like how to buy the steel from me, what steel is used, where to buy the wheels, VFD, what a VFD is, all that sort of thing. So happy reading if you're going down a research rabbit hole. Alright, take care. In the next video I'll be showing you how to make the base for this belt grinder.